We are Kicking Ass and Taking Names, a podcast for small and mid-sized business owners on law, business, and life. Here's your host, Marlon Griffith.
Welcome to episode number 2 of the podcast, Kicking Ass and Taking Names, a podcast for small and mid-sized business owners on business, law, and life. I am your host, Marlon Griffith, the owner and principal litigator of the Griffith Law Group, where we help our clients sleep better at night by resolving legal disputes that threaten their financial security, reputation, and bottom line. Why this podcast? Our goal is to inspire, educate, and motivate business owners like yourself so they can continue to grow and protect what they have worked so hard to build. Episode number 2 is entitled, Can You Really Afford to Be a DIY Business Owner? Part 1. Now, let me tell you about my DIY experience, non-business related. Many of us do a lot of DIY. And for those who don't know DIY, do it yourself. Many of us do things that are DIY because we enjoy those things. Some of us do DIY projects because we don't want to spend the money to have someone else do it. And some of us do DIY projects because that's just what we're used to doing. Well, I had a DIY project that I did not enjoy. It was called cutting the grass. So those of you who've listened to podcast number 1, you know that I was raised in Brooklyn. But a few more details was I was raised in an apartment in Brooklyn where our idea of grass was the sidewalk. So needless to say, I did not grow up cutting grass. Our idea of a lawnmower where I lived in Brooklyn was the hose that we use to spray debris into the street. But of course, moving to this Washington, D.C. area, and like many, I had to live my dream of owning my first home. Well, that first home was a little bit smaller, so the amount of grass to cut was a lot less. And I figured it out, started cutting grass for the first time. But of course, because I've never cut grass before, I ruined the first lawnmower because why? In my haste or inexperience or just distaste for cutting grass, at some point I ran over a few rocks and of course messed up the blade. So I had to take that one back to Home Depot. By the way, Home Depot loved me. A little bit later, we were fortunate enough to move to a little bit larger home, which meant more grass, a lot more grass. And I, of course, thought that, as part of a homeowner, I'm supposed to be cutting the grass. I still didn't enjoy cutting grass. And now I had a lot more in the front and a lot more in the back to cut. And here I was on that Saturday or Sunday cutting the grass. And of course, I messed up the lawnmower because somehow I didn't realize that I was supposed to constantly put oil in a lawnmower. It is a motor after all, right? So of course, the first lawnmower froze on me. I had to take that back, get another one. So when I brought home the third lawnmower, I wasn't going to make that oil mistake again. So of course, what did I do? I overcorrected. And I put constantly put too much oil in the lawnmower, and in fact, at points spilled it onto the lawnmower. So one Sunday, I'm in the backyard, and where our home is located is kind of close to one of the corners of the area, and you can kind of look down onto our backyard. So I'm in the backyard, and I am mowing away, hating every moment of it. And of course, because there's oil all over the lawnmower, smoke is all over the place. And honestly, if you looked out, you wouldn't have seen me. You would have just seen a whole lot of smoke moving as the lawnmower was moving. The smoke got so bad that some of my neighbors were looking over our fence, trying to figure out whether there was a fire in our backyard. And it's really, that was it for me. That was the last straw, as we say. I said, I hate mowing the grass. I hate moving around with this lawnmower. And I said to myself, why am I doing this? Why do I want to spend 2 hours, 3 hours mowing the grass? It never looked even. It would never look right. And then I had to bag up the clippings. I didn't like any of that. And finally, I wised up and asked a friend of mine, hey, buddy, who do you use to cut your grass? And the name he gave me, good old Ron, has been cutting our grass for almost 20 years. Because I finally realized that in that instance, DIY was not working. Because the value of my time was more important, right, than the amount of money I would be paying Ron to cut our grass. Now, that's my personal situation. But let me tell you how DIY impacted my professional life as a business owner. I've owned a law firm since 2009. And for the first 10 years of my law firm, I had a partner. And one of the beauties of a partner is that you share in the expenses and you share in the income. It's kind of a way it helps you feel a little bit more secure, maybe when your particular revenue months may not be that great, because their revenue months may be better. But in 2019, my partner left the firm to become a judge in one of the local jurisdictions here. And probably like a lot of business owners, particularly small business owners, I panicked in a way. And I said, I have to downsize. Not expand, I had to contract. Which meant I had to start doing everything myself because I had a fear that I would not be able to afford the staff that we had for the past 9 years. And that's exactly what I proceeded to do. Downsize. And all of a sudden I went from being a law firm with staff to becoming a solo, as you say, preneur, solo practitioner. Which was never my goal, never my intention. But the fear that I had of not being able to afford to pay people's salary and myself, not being able to afford the expenses of running a law practice, caused me to do just that, contract and downsize. And I became the DIY lawyer. Almost exclusively the DIY lawyer. And it became a moment about 6 months into my new space, new entity of the Griffith Law Group, that I'm speaking with clients on Saturdays. I'm running into the office on the Saturday and the Sunday to do administrative related stuff because I couldn't get to it during the week because I was running the court or handling phone calls or doing all the things that before then I had a staff to help me with, right? But I was doing all that myself. And quite honestly, it was just overwhelming. And just like that lawnmower, I don't enjoy this. I don't want to do this. This is not what I signed up for. And I had to figure out how to stop DIYing. But see, what I learned in my DIY experience was I started to appreciate the value of my time. Because I get it. When you are a small business, you usually have way more time than you have financial resources. And you figure it's way easier to use up your time to build your business than it is to have other people help you or pay other people to help you. But what you should realize, and what I realize, is cash is king. And how you use your time to get cash is the secret to growth. Because the one asset you have, and is your greatest asset, is your time. And as a business owner, you should not be spending your time, you should be spending your time working on your business, not for your business. But if you're going to be a DIY business owner, all you are doing is working for your business. And ultimately, you are DIYing, better known as dying, meaning your firm will not grow. Or if it does grow, it's growing at the expense of your health, mental and physical and otherwise. Because no one we're all human beings, and none of us can withstand working that hard in order to maintain or barely grow our business. We need to know how to get help, how to delegate, and how to use and how to value our time. Because as a business owner, there's two main things you have to do in your business. You have to create value. You have to figure out, how can I create the maximum value possible for my clients or product? How to create the best product that you can sell. Right? The second thing that you focus on is creating efficiency. How can I capture the maximum share of the value for myself? Put that a different way. How can I maximize my profits? Right? I use this type of analogy. Your business is like a pie. Right? The shape of the pie never changes. Same shape. But the size of the pie is what can change. And when you focus on how to grow your business, when you prioritize your time on how to grow your business, the size of your pie will grow. And the larger your pie, the more you get to eat. The more of it you eat. Not to belabor the pie analogy, but your goal as a business owner is to let somebody else bake the cake. You provide all of the ingredients, you provide all the resources, but you let somebody else actually do the baking. If you're working for your business, then you're the one baking the cake. and you're not running an efficient business. But, mindset is very important. And we all have a certain mindset on many different things. And it's the DIY business owner mindset. They have a certain mentality. I know, I've been there. And that is, the less I spend, the more I keep. It's important. The less I spend, the more I keep. That's the DIY mentality. So, but what it does is it devalues your greatest asset, as we've spoken about before, your time. That's your greatest asset, because it's your time that allows you, one, to think about where you want your business to go. It's time that you have to strategize about how you can get your business where you want it to go. It's the time that you have to network, to market, to meet people that will ultimately help you get your business where you want it to go. Right? Time is not infinite, but time is your greatest asset. And if you are spending your time almost exclusively working for your business, then you won't have time to grow your business. Again, if you spend your time almost exclusively working for your business, you won't have time to do the things to grow your business. And the difference in mentality between a DIY business owner and a growth business owner is a growth business owner realizes the better I spend, the more I make. The better I spend, the more I make. Because the growth business owner recognizes and realizes in order to grow her business, she has to invest wisely. She has to spend wisely, which allows her to remove herself from the working for the business part of her business and gives her more time to work on her business. Because the growth business owner mentality is doing less is better. Do less better. If there are 10 things your business needs to do in order to operate, the growth business owner realizes I am not going to do 10 things. I will delegate 8 of those things, but the 2 things that's on my plate, I do those better. Because now I have time to focus and do those better. Right? Because the growth business owner focuses on efficiency, making his business run efficiently. A more efficient business is a more profitable business. And an analogy to something that I just learned a few weeks ago when I attended a NASA conference. Was one of the speakers to notice was an astronaut, and he mentioned that the exit velocity, or the velocity that a rocket needs to exit the Earth, is 25,000 miles an hour. And he explained that the rocket has all of these boosters, have multiple boosters on a rocket. And each booster is meant to get the rocket to a certain altitude. And then that booster disengages. But all the boosters ultimately work to get the rocket to the speed of 25,000 miles an hour so it can leave Earth's atmosphere. And we all seen it, by the time the rocket leaves Earth's atmosphere, all of those boosters are gone. And to me, it's an analyze, I compare it to DIY in your business. As the astronaut said, if those boosters do not release, the rocket cannot make it out of the Earth's atmosphere. Because all of a sudden the rocket, when it was originally an asset to get them to a certain level, now drags the rocket down, slows the rocket down, and the rocket would not get to the 25,000 miles. So those boosters have to be released. And it's the same thing when it relates to your business. I understand you may be at certain points in your business where you have to answer the phone. You have to take the orders. Right? You have to schedule the appointments. The businesses are all different stages. But part of your growth plan should be eliminating those rocket boosters as you grow. You cannot keep those same duties put on your plate if you intended to grow. Because if you do keep those same duties on your plate, you will never exit the Earth's atmosphere. You will never get to your growth potential as a business. So now, when you get to this point of you know me, I think you can tell, I like to, in these podcasts, I don't tell you what to do, but I think I like to pose questions to you for you to answer. And I got that concept from one of my favorite group. And my favorite group is named U2. I'm sure most people have heard of the group U2. But it's one of the songs that I used to listen to when I was a teenager. You know, when you're a teenager, you know everything. I know my teenagers know everything now too. But nonetheless, I was listening to the song, and it was the song is 11 o'clock TikTok. And one of the lines in the song, Bono sings, "We thought we had all of the answers, but it was the questions we had wrong." And I found in my life and my experiences, if you seek to ask the right questions, the answers become self-evident. So I've always sought to ask the right question, not necessarily to provide answers and answer after answer. Ask the right question. What is the right question? So in this instance, when I'm speaking to you about DIY, and you being a DIY owner, your question may be, well, how do I stop? How do I know if this particular task or this particular activity that I do is a DIY? Oh, I should stop. And I think you should take, first question, an assessment. Where am I spending my time? Take an assessment. When you look at your business, spend a week. Just spend a week and say, okay, how did I spend my week? What did I spend my time doing? Now, for me, as a lawyer, it's a little bit easier for me because, lawyers in the billable hour, we all have timekeeping mechanisms that we use to track the times that we spend on our client matters. But one of the things I did also was I actually would put in time, record time when I was handling administrative matters, whether it was related to looking at the financials, whether it's related to learning about a particular subject matter related to running my business. I just wanted to get a sense of how I was using my time for a week. And it was very informative for me, because actually I realized some of the ways I thought I was using my time, I really wasn't using as much time as I thought I was. And some of the places where I thought I was using a little bit of time, I was using a lot more. So it helped me kind of become more efficient and realize, all right, this is way too much. This is maybe something that I need to delegate to others in my business, or this is something I need to focus a little bit more on because this is very important and I'm not spending enough time doing that. Right? So it's very important and very enlightening for me to see. The second question, this might be a unique question for many of you listening to this podcast, is what is the cost of my labor? See, because your time has a value. Right? Your time has a value. If we use the sports, the athletes analogy, the hourly rate of an athlete is ridiculous. If you calculate that, I think I read that maybe LeBron James maybe makes $800,000 per game or something like that, right? Well, if you just did pure, like simple, the game is 2 hours. The game is 2 hours that they have to warm up. So let's say they get through. They had 4:30 for a 7 o'clock game, something along that line, and that's all part of warm up. The game goes from 7 to 9, sometimes overtime. If you just say that LeBron plays a game where he literally spends 5 hours that day on that game day working on his craft, at the game, he gets paid roughly $160,000 an hour on game day. So in that instance, the value of his time is $160,000 an hour. Now, let's not take this literally because LeBron James and other folks might calculate it differently. But the point I'm trying to make is you can calculate your time, the value of your time. Because and the reason it's important, if I go back to my cutting the grass, trust me when I tell you that my hourly rate is a lot more than it is than what I pay Ron to cut the grass. So when I'm spending my time DIYing by cutting grass or DIYing by answering phones, right? That's money. That's money I'm losing because I can delegate that to someone else at a way lower hourly rate than my own to do that work. So not only am I losing money because I'm taking my hourly rate to do that job, I'm also now can't use that time to work on my business. And I suggest that you might want to look at it from that perspective as well. If you decide that your hourly rate, for example, if you determine that your hourly rate is $100 an hour, and you can pay a receptionist $20 an hour to be the receptionist, as opposed to you being your own receptionist, do you not think it's worth that $80 difference? I would suggest to you that it is, but it's a way you can look at it. The final question that you ask yourself is, how much value am I adding to my business? So let's go right back to what I'm saying. How much value are you adding to your business when you're serving as your business receptionist? When you're serving as your business scheduler? When you're serving as your business bookkeeper? How much value are you adding to your business when you DIY into those roles? Again, I stress and I understand businesses are all at different phases. And for many of us who start a business from scratch with limited resources, you're often in a place where you have no choice but to do all of those things in the beginning. But your goal should be just like the rocket boosters, that as you rise, you discard those things. You delegate those duties to others. Now, the beauty of the world that we live in is with technology. As I'm doing this podcast in my conference room in my office, I don't have to go to a studio. Well, the technology also helps business owners expand their business without necessarily having to hire, and for certain duties, without having to hire individuals as employees. Let's talk about scheduling. Many of those business owners who can afford it hire an actual personal assistant. That's the person. I mean, everyone knows what a personal assistant is. But that takes the schedule, and that person knows your calendar, knows your schedule, and can set appointments on your calendar. So that's something that you don't have to deal with. But if you can't afford a personal assistant, there's virtual assistants. These are companies where you can contract with at a fraction of the cost of a personal assistant, and the third parties they interact with your clients or other third parties. They have access to your calendar and they schedule things on your calendar. Again, you don't have to interface at that phase of the relationship. And if you don't want to engage or with a virtual assistant, there's other software, other calendar-driven software like Calendly. It was a time when you'll look at something like Calendly and it would just be for very small businesses to use. But if you'll notice, Fortune 500 companies are using similar vehicles where you making an appointment with, say, your banker or someone like that, and they send you an email and said, pick a time, pick one of these times that I'm available. So if corporate America is doing it, I think you should consider doing it too. Now, communication. Now, I'm going to tell you this. I do dispute resolution. I do litigation. You'd be surprised how many disputes originate not because of something wrong being done, but because of a lack of communication about what was being done. I mean, those who are listening to this podcast, you may be in a role of a business owner, but you are inevitably also in the role have been serving the role as a customer, as a client. And you know what it is when you call one of your companies and they got you on hold and you got to press this prompt and press that prompt. You're on hold, you're on hold, you're on hold, you're on hold. Imagine how you feel. Now imagine how you would feel if you were your client trying to connect with you and who's paying you, who's paid the invoice you've sent them, who's paid for your service, and they can't get in touch with you. Right? Because of communication, not because you are off on a boat somewhere, not because you're on vacation, because you are DIYing everything. You're working very hard. You're trying to service the client who's right in front of your face at that moment. That's what you're working on. But your client don't necessarily appreciate that because your clients want to have connection and contact with you or want to know when they can have a contact with you. They do not want to send correspondence and is not responded to in a timely manner. They don't want to call you consistently and get a wonderful, music playing and then go to my voicemail. Most people like to speak to people. So often when these clients get annoyed or pissed off about that aspect, then they start taking a closer look at the actual services that you're providing for them. Then they become very disenchanted. And that's where disputes start to manifest themselves, because they're now less tolerant of whatever excuses or reasons, I should say reasons, that you provide. Because they look at your business as a whole and they say, well, if you can't answer the phone, if you're not available, I don't even know you're providing me a quality product in the first place. So things like communication, because of technology, there's such things you can outsource to virtual receptionists. All right? Or you can do that in combination with a phone system that prompts and gives a customer or a client an option to connect to a live person, a virtual assistant. Also, obviously, for those of you who have websites that are active, meaning that they're more than just a brochure, most websites and most provide online chat. Some customers would be content with online chat. The key is customers want to be able to communicate with you. And you have to provide a way for them to communicate with your company, not necessarily with you, but with your company when they want to communicate, not when you set, quote unquote, have office hours. Now, the final, is many others, but one of the final things is employees. Sometimes the biggest and the hardest thing for small businesses to do is hire people, is commit to hiring people full time. And they proceed a lot of times to hire what they believe are 1099s, what they call them 1099s, but quite frankly, they're often, the way the 1099s are treated, they're treated as employees, but you're not paying employee taxes. And I've had many clients in where we ended up at the Department of Labor for that particular jurisdiction, or the Department of Employment Services, because the allegation was this person was your employee for 2 years, not your 1099, and now you owe us all this money in back taxes, and we're going to fine you. Right? And then obviously we have to go through that process and litigate and try to resolve those disputes. And often some of that could have been avoided by merely either you in your mentality say, look, what, I can afford this employee, and this is how I can do it. But I'm also going to engage a payroll service. I'm not doing it myself, to make sure that the payroll is done appropriately and properly. The appropriate amount of taxes are taken out, whatever fees. I outsource that to a specialist who does that. I am not doing it myself while I'm sitting at home on a Friday evening trying to figure out how to pay our employees. Right? And it's simple things like that. There's many other, as I call, administrative back office duties that you can delegate either by hiring someone in-house or outsourcing it to other entities who would do that for you. And let me tell you, most of your clients will never know the difference of whether the person that they're speaking to that represents your company is that actually physically in your office or gets a check from your company and is on your payroll. And quite frankly, most clients don't care. All they care about are you providing them the value that they are paying for. That's what clients care about. That's what customers care about. Next, part 2 of this podcast, we're going to focus on what I call the C-suite. That's much more in-depth conversation. It's dealing with how to engage outside counsel, legal counsel, how to engage accountants, how to engage CFOs, COOs, maybe CMOs, which is chief marketing officers, chief operating officers, and alike, and when you should think about engaging these services. Until then, I look forward to you all listening to this podcast, and please, as you've done from the first, I look forward to hearing your comments and your thoughts on this podcast and other podcasts in the future.
Thanks for listening. Follow us on social media or head over to our website to check out our blogs and sign up for our monthly email newsletter. Go to glgdc.com.